Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a deep dive back to the very dawn of the Renaissance to unpack the story of a, frankly, incredibly complex guy. We're going to see how this highly controversial, intensely mystical figure, someone who is deeply misunderstood by his peers, somehow ended up laying the actual chemical foundations for the modern medicine we all rely on today. It's a wild ride, so let's get into it. So was Paracelsus a dangerous sorcerer or the literal father of modern medicine? That's the big question here. When you look at the source material, you see a man who was constantly dismissed by the establishment as a practitioner of the dark arts, just a dangerous wizard, right? But he completely defied those labels and actually became a trailblazing pioneer of pharmacology. To really get this guy, we have to look at the context of his time. You can see the timeline here. He's right at the dawn of the Renaissance, born in 1493, just a decade after Martin Luther. Think about that for a second. This was an era of radical spiritual and scientific upheaval. The world was literally tearing down ancient dogmas left and right. It was, honestly, the absolute perfect environment for a revolutionary thinker like Paracelsus to thrive in. Part 1, the young Paracelsus. Let's briefly look at his origins to see exactly how his early life set the stage for all his radical ideas. So, born in Switzerland in 1493, Theophrastus, who, by the way, later adopted the very grand name Paracelsus, actually started out as a really frail kid. He was quite small, even prone to rickets. But his father, Dr. Hohenheim, was remarkably forward-thinking for the 15th century. Instead of just locking him indoors, which was completely standard at the time, he treated his son's physical weakness by immersing him in nature. He took the boy on these long, restorative walks through the mountains, teaching him the practical, hands-on secrets of wild medicinal herbs, poisons, and their antidotes right out there in the woods. And you know, this early, super intimate exposure to the outdoors completely shaped his entire worldview. It led him straight to this philosophical concept of the macrocosm and the microcosm. Basically, Paracelsus started viewing the vast universe, the macrocosm, and the human being, the microcosm, as direct, deep reflections of one another. To understand the grand cosmos, you had to understand the human body, and vice versa. To heal the body, you absolutely had to understand the natural laws of the cosmos. It's like a giant, interconnected puzzle. Moving on to Section 2, Rebellion Against Tradition. Because, of course, an education based purely in nature was bound to clash with a rigid establishment. When Paracelsus finally entered the university system at Basel around 1510, he was, well, let's just say he was completely unimpressed. He looked at the official science of the day, which was incredibly scholastic, dogmatic, and based entirely on dusty old books and ancient authorities, and he totally rejected it. He thought the book-bound monks had it all backwards. Instead, he championed his own method: hands-on, deep observation of nature, real laboratories, and active, messy experimentation. Seeking actual, actionable knowledge instead of just memorizing those dusty textbooks. He went off and studied the occult sciences. He was looking into magnetism and even things we might compare to telepathy today, under the abbot Trithemius. Paracelsus realized that true science required direct, physical engagement with the real world, not just endless circular debates over centuries-old texts. Section 3. Alchemy to heal. This is a huge turning point where his actual scientific legacy really starts to take shape. Now, what's so fascinating here is how Paracelsus completely redefined the ultimate goal of alchemy. Back then, alchemists were practically obsessed with trying to turn base metals into gold, right? Just a selfish pursuit of wealth. But Paracelsus firmly argued that the true, divine purpose of the alchemist's career was entirely different. It wasn't about making gold. It was a vital process meant to purify elements specifically for the healing of diseases. That was a total paradigm shift. And to pull this off, he didn't just sit around theorizing. He really got his hands dirty. Through intense, rigorous work in heavily equipped laboratories, using crucibles, retorts, specialized alembics, the whole shebang, he pushed the absolute boundaries of chemical analysis. I mean, he was conducting active, highly sophisticated experiments literal centuries before modern chemistry was officially even a thing. The whole point of all this intense lab work was something he called the quintessence. Basically, he sought to extract this hidden, super potent medicinal soul, the absolute concentrated core active ingredient, from everyday plants and seemingly dead inert minerals. His goal? To extract that infinitesimal curing property to treat really complex human ailments.
Now, because he was so heavily influenced by Kabbalistic and esoteric traditions, he adopted a really rich, almost coded vocabulary. For example, he threw around terms like azoth to describe the creative principle of nature, or this powerful, spiritualized vital force driving all natural creation. Sure, the terminology sounds super mystical to us today, but his intent was incredibly practical. He was trying to identify and harness the active energies within physical matter.
Part 4. The 3 principles. Let's see how all of this crazy experimentation actually builds into a concrete chemical framework. Okay, this is the crucial point. This is where his genius really shines. He organized literally all matter in the universe into a groundbreaking new chemical framework. He proposed that all bodies, organic and inorganic, are fundamentally combinations of 3 distinct principles. You've got salt, representing solidity and purification in the body, sulfur, representing volatility and dissolution, and mercury, representing fluidity and elimination. This was a massive, massive shift from the old, tired 4-element theory of earth, water, air, and fire that everyone else was stuck on. But he didn't just stop at theory. Actually, by applying this chemical framework to the human body, he pioneered some incredibly lasting modern treatments. Check this out. He invented zinc ointment. Yeah, the exact same stuff you can still buy at your local pharmacy today. He formulated laudanum for debilitating illnesses, pioneered metal therapy using mercury, and even discovered the semi-metal bismuth. He was literally pulling real, effective medicine right out of the earth. And how did it work? Well, he believed these highly specific chemical medicines worked by interacting directly with what he called the archeus. He defined the archeus as this vital, creative energy inherent in nature, but also in every individual human organ. Basically, if the archeus of your liver was failing, you needed a specific chemical quintessence to target and restore that exact life force. Which brings us to our final section. Part 5, the mystical physician. Let's look at the core philosophy that drove the man himself. Because despite all these massive, incredibly forward-thinking scientific contributions, Paracelsus always remained a deeply spiritual mystic at heart. He literally saw God's hand in every single leaf, rock, and mineral. He firmly taught that a true physician is ordained by God and they must be driven by profound love and charity for the patient. Not selfishness, not prestige, and definitely not a desire for financial profit. Only God gives medical wisdom, as he put it. And because of this deep, unshakable faith and a benevolent design, he held a radically optimistic view of medicine. I love this part. He boldly claimed that absolutely no disease is incurable. Think about how crazy that sounded back then. He believed that for every terrible affliction, God has already provided a natural cure. It's just waiting in the earth, waiting to be discovered by dedicated, relentless research. So leaving us with this powerful reminder that nature is the physician's teacher, we really have to look around today and ask ourselves something. If Paracelsus was finding actual cures in zinc and bismuth 500 years ago, just by looking a little bit closer at the natural world, what modern medical breakthroughs are still hiding in plain sight? What's just waiting out there for the next visionary to observe nature closely enough to finally unlock it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer today. I hope it really sparked your curiosity, and as always, keep questioning what's possible.